guys, RitzKid76 here, and today I'm going to be showing you the version 2 of this Connect 4 that I made a long time ago. I think this was my first video. Basically I made it a lot smaller. So the previous version, well, it wasn't that big, 85, no. I mean, there's two of these layers, but you can pretty much visually see that it's smaller. This one's one block bigger on the bottom. I mean, I guess I'm okay at redstone. And it's 2 blocks on the back, and then a crap ton on the top. I don't know how big that is, like what, 4? Oh look, he's joining in. Genius. E. Okay. But yeah, basically, if you input to these blocks, obviously it does the same thing that it's always done as the old one. The only difference is 2 specific things that I wanted to change on this. Well, I guess 3. 1, make it smaller, which you already saw. 2 is make the reset a lot faster. So this obviously doesn't demonstrate it as much, but I'm going to try to get a nice little setup going here. I'm not sure what that is. I meant to type a D, but of course I'm stupid, so why would I type a D? But yeah. So I'm basically just gonna get a small checkerboard pattern, and somebody just did like a donut outside. I don't know if you heard that. People are really interesting these days. But yeah, if I just quickly get this set up, you can see they're pretty much identical. One's half a checker off, but it's the same. So I'm gonna press the reset on that first, just to give it a nice head start. And that one will start polling, but this one is much faster. As you can see, it's already caught up past the old one, and it's already finished. So yeah, that was one of the main reasons I wanted to remake it, and I made it much faster. In fact, you could see the reset clock on this is only, what is that, like 22 ticks? Where this one's too many. Yeah. If you want to count that, go for it. I'm not going to judge you. Somebody's going to count it and post it in the comments, I guarantee it. Even though there's going to be like 5 comments. But it's fine. But yeah, one of the main changes that I had to make to this, to make it a lot smaller, was this little sorting thing here. So as you can see, there is technically no input. I mean, if you can see, there is no input to this bottom line of pistons. So on the old one, there was a little line here, right? What the fuck? Well, you guys didn't see anything. Maybe this one broke, but that's okay, because it sucks. Basically, you can see that on this one, there is an input to those pistons, right? And there's a little block catch here. It goes kind of like, well, I mean, you can kind of see the path of the concrete here. It's going to fall down and then shoot down onto the sorter and then move over or fall through. And then you've got this input. Whereas on the other one, it just goes straight down into the sorter. So there's no, like, shifting things over. And what? Something just... What is going on with this thing, man? What? Or was it you? Bruh. I'm so confused. Swear I heard a piston. But yeah. Basically, it just falls straight down. And the catch is actually on this observer. So these get shot out. And those observers are observers because I needed an input to those. So no matter what position it's in, it's always going to power that at the right time, right? Because if it's out, it's just going to catch the blue, and there is no reason to push that out. It still will when it retracts, but like it doesn't really matter. But if it's red, and I power these pistons, that's going to toggle and then toggle again. And when it toggles the second time, it's obviously going to, you know, push the red over. So it just kind of worked out. And then another thing I changed is you could see every single sand elevator here is kind of this 3 wide design. You've got the one there, the one there, you've got another one there, there, and they're all these like 3 wide designs that push the sand up. And I decided to make that smaller because that was a massive limiting factor in this entire thing. So I made it 2 wide. And all of them are 2 wide except for this one, because I wanted to keep this layer as close to the bottom as I could. So obviously I couldn't put like redstone torches here, or else this would have to be another layer down. So I just did the old design on that bottom there. And then all of these happen to have that tiny one. Apart from this one, it's like almost the tiny one. It's just I moved the input for those sticky pistons over to there because I had an input running through this area. Another weird thing is this. So instead of the sand getting pushed up to this position here, it ends up getting pushed to this position, and the input for this is up there. So when the sand moves, this piston's going to extend through the path of it and then fire this piston to shove it over. And yeah, it's kind of horrible, but it gets the job done, so I'm not complaining. Right? It's great. But yeah, so there's that. And yeah, and I also compacted this top thing because why would you have this massive air gap here? Because, you know, smart. Absolute genius. But yeah, that's what prototyping's for. So I just made another one of these and shifted it back so that you didn't have to have this in the way, and it's there instead, and it works. So yeah. Epic. And yeah, and then basically the main thing that I had to completely remake is this entire side part because it's a different machine. You can't just copy it over. And the item sorter happened to be the worst part because, as you can see, this item filter here happens to be here, right? It has a nice open space for its item filtering. Genius. But yeah, so there's an item filter there to sort the sword versus the other one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just watch the old video. But yeah, and it's easy because you could just run the items to this one convenient spot here, and they both can combine. But on this one, the inputs happen to be lower, very much lower than this item elevator here, and one was on the other side. There was no possible way to put that one over here. So I had to take the item filter and put it at the edge right here. This is the item filter. And the locked hopper is here. And the item filter has a 2-tick delay instead of 1, which means that you can't just shove items in as fast as hopper speed. You actually have to slow them down. And it ended up working out anyways because the input for this entire item elevator is at this spot, which isn't an automatic input. This one is the automatic input. So any items that go into there get automatically sent all the way up and like filtered. But they all pool in this spot. So I ended up sending an input to that spot right there, which later basically gets clocked after like 5-6 ticks by this piston here when that gets pulsed. So it slows down the item rate a lot. So the reset time for items is really slow, but it doesn't really matter because there's enough items in here anyways for you to even completely drain it at all. So basically, if you filled the entire board, pressed the reset, and immediately played the second it was done, the items would all be pooled here, but there's still way more than enough to play another game. So it doesn't really matter all that much. But yeah, so this big spaghetti mess from like that corner over there to like kind of this position, like it's kind of like a slope, is the item sorting. And there's a whole bunch of mine carts, as you probably noticed. There's one there, there's one there, there's another one in there. Yeah, there's one there. Basically, those are just to get items where they need to go. So the input of the item flow for the sorter is there. And that goes over a signal strength input, which I needed to get the item sorter inputs from 1 to 3 to 0 to 2, right? So that it goes straight into the torch without having this redstone dust line, which makes things smaller. So yeah. And then after that, there is... actually, wait, that is 2 ticks, and that's also 2 ticks. I'm not sure why it had to be slowed down anyways for some reason. Things were moving around, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. Unprepared video. It's great. But yeah. So what was I even... Minecarts. Yeah, so basically you have that signal string thing, and then I just put it on top of this hopper to pull the item down, shove it into this chest minecart over here, because I had to somehow get this input to there. Which all of this is just a big mess to get it to this hopper here. So yeah, it goes down here, and there's a fence holding that up. That goes to this position, which gets shoved into that cart, which goes into that hopper back there. Which goes into another item elevator to get things up to the right height. And the input for that is there, and it's just got a big pasta mess. It just works, don't worry about it. And that gets shoved into an observer with a minecart in it. So, and that minecart's at the right height that it can go right into that hopper there. So yeah. And that is the input for the items. So, yeah, it's a big mess, but that was the hardest part of this entire thing. And, I mean, that's pretty much all there is. Another thing that I really compacted, since the original version of this didn't have this height overflow circuit, and it was just slapped on afterwards, the original size of this was basically to this block here. That green circuit was the last layer, and that's why it's kind of weird looking. But eventually I slapped this on, seeing that you could exceed the height level of the input here. Which on this one it wasn't a big deal, you could go up to that spot, but on this one it would be, because the input is a block lower. They get input on the top height here, so if you try to do more than that, they would get shoved and break on the button. So that obviously needed to be incorporated, and I built it along with the rest of the machine, so it wasn't out of place like air gap here. It's pretty great. But yeah, and it's a lot smaller, so I'm happy with it. So yeah, the input comes down, and it toggles this sticky piston, which sends an input to that observer. That's just a really stupid way of getting an input through an air gap that needs to be there. And you'll see why in a second. But that gets sent down to there. This is the decrementer. If you haven't seen an explanation of how this system works, just watch the old video. But the shut off is here. So when this gets pulled over, obviously the input can't get passed to that repeater. And also this piston can't extend to decrement the thing because push limit against an immovable block. So you literally just can't input. And it's silence as well, which is really nice when you can't input. Whereas on this one you heard clicks. So it's a little more obvious. And yeah, I mean, everything's pretty much the same. It's just a little more condensed and simplified. But yeah, sorry for not posting in a while. I just was busy with setting up college stuff, COVID stuff, job, lack of redstone interest, but I'm back and I got many videos to come, so I hope you guys enjoy this one. It's kind of like, I don't really know how to say it, like a metaphor maybe? I don't know what it's called. This was my first video. This is my first video in the recoming of Ritz. Don't worry about it. Hope you enjoyed the video.